I have grown up in the state of Iowa and been here literally my whole life. Well, except for those 3 months that I moved to Illinois. What a choice. Nah, I'm just kidding. I love you too, Illinois. But regardless, I do know there are some stereotypes when it comes to living in Iowa. Like, we have so much corn. And no, not potatoes. That's Idaho. Don't get us confused because we will come after you. I got a little story about that. But needless to say, I want to cover some of the stereotypes and some of the misconceptions as far as living in Iowa. And I think I got pretty good authority to talk about it as I've been here 30 years. Now, it's not a fact that you can't find anywhere online that Iowa is fairly sparsely populated. The entire state of Iowa has just a little over 3 million people. But here's the thing about that. Iowa is really known for its small towns, but that doesn't mean everybody lives in the small towns. In fact, about 63% of Iowa's population lives in a city. Yes, a city. Yes, we do have cities here. Places like Davenport, where I'm currently at, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines being the biggest of all of those. So people, when they are looking at moving here, they're thinking, I'm gonna have to live in a small town. That is simply not true because more than half of our residents already live in a city. Now, beg to differ on definition of city because Des Moines being our largest hasn't even hit 1 million people, but that's going to be changing as I've heard projections that they will be hitting 1 million people here in the near future. So there are great amenities in a lot of these cities that are convenient. You won't get everything that like a Chicago or San Francisco has, but you have a good amount, and it's really nice because the populations in these cities aren't enormous, so you don't have the problems of the population density that you do in other cities. So that's really kind of a cool thing. But yes, Iowa's known for its small towns, which I grew up in one, but most of us live in cities, and now I actually do live in a city. So hey, I guess it is what it is. And speaking of lifestyles, a lot of people move here into Iowa to try to become a homesteader. Seems like it's a new popular thing to do. Go out, buy some land, become a homesteader. And I'll tell you, it's not as easy as it might seem. If you're moving here and you want to live out in the country, you're going to have a great time being a homesteader. But if you're somebody that's moving here and they still have to live in a city, it's still possible, but it's going to be a lot harder, specifically around animals. A lot of cities have restrictions on animals. Currently, I live in Bettendorf, and Bettendorf is one of those cities that you cannot have chickens in, and it's a big deal. But even in a small town, like my hometown has restrictions. In fact, when I was in high school, there was a quote-unquote chicken war, and it made the news. There's one family that had moved here from California, and they had chickens, and some of the locals didn't like that because they knew it was against the rules of the city, and the whole thing blew up, made it onto the news. So even in a small town, it's a problem. So if you're moving and you really want to do that homesteading, make sure you're checking the town's regulations, ordinances when it comes to certain things like chickens. Now, to my knowledge, there's no restrictions on things like gardens. I absolutely love gardening. We're here in the early spring, and me and my wife actually just started our seeds. We start them from seeds so that we can get different varieties that you can't necessarily get at the big box stores. So we got some tomatoes growing, we got some onions growing, we even got, I don't know, some peppers growing, some hot peppers. I personally like hot peppers, although since I got married, my tolerance for heat has actually gone down, so I don't eat as many as I used to. But regardless, we love gardening, and that is a part of homesteading. Just know if you're moving to Iowa, it's not just this homesteading paradise that it may seem, especially if you're not moving onto a piece of property that is outside of a city, outside of the ordinances that can come with a city. So just keep that in mind. It's definitely possible. Iowa's a state that is really great for homesteading. You just gotta know where and when you should do that. Now, when it comes to weather, it's a misconception that Iowa has a bunch of big things that happen with natural disasters. And maybe it's not a misconception, but the big scary thing that's in the room is tornadoes. And tornadoes are a big scary thing that happens. But here's the thing. I've lived in Iowa my whole life, like I said, except for those 3 months in Illinois, which honestly isn't a whole lot different than Iowa. I've never seen a tornado myself. And not to say I'm bragging or anything, but it's just not that common to see them. They do happen and they do destroy towns. Last year, by my hometown, a town called Minden got basically wiped off the map because of the tornado. So they do absolutely happen, and you do have to be very precautious when it comes to that, but they're not happening every single day. I mean, Davenport has been here well over 100 years, and to my knowledge, it hasn't really been hit by a tornado that has been, city wiping off the map sort of thing. Usually when the tornado happens, it's happening out in a cornfield where not a lot of infrastructure is, unless you have a farmstead, then of course, but it's not happening all the time. The thing I will say is when you're moving here, you want to make sure that you get yourself a basement. Basements aren't as common as I thought they were all over the United States, because I help a lot of people move here, and some of them are surprised that almost every house does have a basement. And part of that is for obviously living, finishing it, doing all that, but also because of tornado safety. If there's a tornado coming, run down to your basement and you'll be a lot safer than if you were upstairs or not having a basement at all. So something to think about. The other big natural disaster that we do have is flooding, specifically here in Davenport, right on the Mississippi. And almost every year it seems like the Mississippi does flood. So definitely something to consider. Flood insurance is a big deal. You want to make sure if you're buying a home and you don't want to be in a floodplain, that you're checking that before you actually write an offer, because you never know. The biggest risk is a big flood comes and the whole house is destroyed and you don't have insurance. So keep that in mind. Those are the two biggest natural disasters that could potentially happen, but honestly, they don't happen every day, all the time. We don't have earthquakes, we don't have volcanoes, we don't have that sort of stuff. So pretty safe overall. But again, when those serious things happen, you want to be prepared for it as well. This next one hit home to an older video of mine, and I had a comment that said, Iowa nice is dead. Now, what is Iowa nice to begin with? Well, Iowa nice is the culture of the people that live in Iowa. Generally speaking, people are super polite, they're very helpful, but this comment caught me off guard. It said, Iowa nice is dead. Now, is it true? I would say it's not true, but I can see where the sentiment can come from. Just because the culture of the people of Iowa is generally polite and nice doesn't mean you still don't get those jerks that are around. When I was growing up, we had neighbors, and these neighbors, regardless, not very Iowa nice. They would build these lawnmowers for racing, which all right with that. But the problem is they would try to drive them literally at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, to the point where my dad had to actually go out and yell at them that cops had to come. So you still run into rude people even in Iowa and having that Iowa nice culture. So is it dead? No, not really. A lot of people that move here tell me it's kind of weird walking up to somebody from Iowa. They're friendly, they're smiling, they're asking if you need any help. So it's not dead, but you do still run into the occasional jerk. So something to think about. Now, no matter what the people are like here in Iowa, you're gonna wanna know what to expect and where to try to make that decision. And that's actually why I put together a relocation guide. Yes, a relocation guide filled with 41 pages of things to know when relocating here, from best restaurants, best food, best grocery stores, schools, best neighborhoods. Everything is covered in this relocation guide. Trust me, you're going to want to get this relocation guide. So go ahead and click the link down below. Now, a big misconception of Iowa and its jobs is that everything revolves around agriculture. And there's a little bit of truth to that. I mean, Iowa is known for its agriculture, farmers to implement shops, to pigs, to cows, to everything that goes along with agriculture. We have a lot of that here. But it doesn't mean that's our only industry. I became an engineer of all things. I got a job in a manufacturing facility. I did that for 6 years. I also had jobs with insurance companies where I was an intern in my engineering role. I was working with data centers and stuff like that. And then also just different jobs with different manufacturers. So things are definitely here. Tech is here, manufacturing is here, different jobs like that. So it's not all revolving around agriculture. And that's a big misconception when people are moving here, because sometimes they feel like their specialty job may not be here. And it may not be, but the cool thing is we have a lot of cool infrastructure when it comes to internet. So we get a lot of remote workers that want to work here if your job isn't specifically located in Iowa. In fact, I'm just helping a couple move from Chicago to Iowa, and he's going to keep the same job because his career is saying, yep, we want you so much, you can keep that job and work remotely. So it's definitely possible, and you don't have to work in agriculture if you're going to be living here. Now in Iowa, it's not really a big problem when it comes to traffic. Now, if you talk to somebody from Iowa, they actually may complain about the traffic, but trust me, it's really not too bad. I'd say the worst one is Des Moines, but even that, it's like from 3 to 5 the worst traffic, and then it's pretty simple. I personally enjoy the traffic here, but there are some caveats to that. One of the things is we have a lot of speed cameras. I can talk about this because I actually got caught by one over in LeClaire, Iowa. I was going down the highway, just not really paying attention, to be honest, and got caught by a speed camera. Another buddy of mine got caught by that exact speed camera, and to be honest, I wasn't going that much faster than the speed limit, but of course it got me anyway. And also my best friend, he actually got a speeding ticket up in Cedar Rapids on the interstate because they had speed cameras up there. So it's something to think about. Just understand where those speed cameras are and pay attention, unlike myself when I got caught in LeClaire. But overall, traffic is pretty good. Even if you talk to somebody from Iowa and they complain about it, they just never experience real traffic, would be my guess. Here in Iowa, the restaurant scene is better than you probably expect, specifically in the cities. And like I said at the beginning, about 63% of us live in the cities. We have places like in Ankeny. My brother lives in Ankeny. He takes me out to eat when we go over there to visit, and he took me to this really cool sushi place. For the life of me, I cannot remember the name of it, but it was really good. And there's other places like here in Davenport. I love going to Miss Faye's in downtown Davenport, Mantra downtown. So you have Indian food, you have Thai food, you have sushi, you have all sorts of different things that I personally really enjoy. But you also get the Iowa type food, the pub style. The big thing here in Iowa is the pork tenderloin. We actually have competitions every year, it seems, to talk about the best tenderloin in the state of Iowa. And I am proud of a town close to my hometown that did win best pork tenderloin sandwich. And personally, I love them. In a side note, the best way to have a pork tenderloin sandwich is actually grilled, not fried, with a little mayo on it. I don't know, I love it that way, but everybody likes it just a little bit different. So we do have a good restaurant scene considering where we're located, and I feel like it's a misconception that we really don't have a good variety, whereas the fact is that we actually do have a decent variety considering we're in the Midwest. Now, no matter where you are moving in the state of Iowa, you're gonna need a partner to help you make a decision on what the best place is for you. And luckily for you, I am a licensed realtor in the state of Iowa, and my number is popping up down below. I'd love to help your family and yourself out when you make that move here. And if you're in a location that I don't service, I have agents all over the state that I trust that I can refer you to. So give me a call, send me a text. I will help you as best as I can. But if you want to see what the great state of Iowa looks like, check out this video right here.